but it's really evolved a lot of good information. I learned about 3 years ago how to really run well. And like, I didn't know that in high school. But it's a huge difference. I just learned that, and then we get to the cardiovascular portion of the program, and we're not talking about that. But a lot of people are like, I'm not going to run. That's probably going to walk. But for people that want to jog, just knowing how to do it really well, effectively, is useful. So there's a lot of stuff like that.
Do some walking. Do some walking.
this is going to affect, because when we did this before in my office, we started right at 5:30, and there was a countdown, and ladies and gentlemen, Dr. McKnight. Is that going to affect anything for people that are like, it's 4 after the hour, and they're probably thinking, where is he? I'm the director of the program, so we're glad to finally meet with you all in person. The last year we've done it virtually. So just a couple things. I don't want to forget to tell you, the library closes at 7. We'll try to be done at 6:30. Sometimes people linger afterwards, but they're not going to let you linger too long, so they turn the lights out and lock the doors and take your car keys or something. Let's see. So the library has said that as a speaker, they're okay if I don't wear a mask. It's your prerogative to decide to wear the mask or not. There's going to be a lot of people in here potentially. I am a hospitalist at the hospital as well, so I take care of hospitalized patients. I've been taking care of COVID patients since this all started. It is really ramped up. Just, you probably know that, but hospitals everywhere are full. We're having a hard time transferring people to get them someplace. I talked to a lady today who took her father to Cambridge, and they said, yeah, he needs admitted, but he's probably going to sit here for a couple of days in our emergency room because we don't have a bed. Best thing you can do is take him to OSU and get him admitted there, and it took 24 hours for that to happen. So it's really rampant right now. Not to scare anybody. A lot of you are vaccinated, so you might feel a little bit safer. But just want you to know, I don't know how the rest of you feel about the mask. It's really hard for me to talk without a mask on. So I'm going to leave that up to you, whether you take it off or leave it on. I think all of you got the workbooks, right? When you met with Kelly previously, you got these workbooks. This workbook is the companion journal, and I apologize for this. The printer kind of messed up on this. This is supposed to have been half this size. This was meant to stick in a pocketbook or take it with you to the store. So it was never meant to be this big. So I really apologize. And this is the journal the student manual that we're going to go by. This will have most of the content of what we're talking about each week, and then some reading material as well. So this is what you're going to use most of the time, but I am giving you assignments every week in the journal to do some pondering and some answering some questions, okay? Because this is we want you very involved. This is like active learning. It's not designed to take a lot of time or feel like a lot of homework, but it's designed to make you think and make you come up with answers that you feel you can apply in the course. So I just wanted you to have that background on the two workbooks.
I think all of you have had blood work. Some have not. Kelly will arrange for that. We're going to go over all your blood tests in week 4. These classes have been strategically designed. The topics that we're talking about are strategically designed for certain reasons. So some of you tonight are ready to just jump right in and tell me what to eat. I want to lose weight, or how do I start feeling healthier? The nutrition part of this doesn't come until week 4, and some of you, it's going to drive you crazy because you want to know that. If you want nutrition information, you want to know what to eat, go to the journal, and in the journal, in the second half of the journal, there's several pages of a food list that's a very limited list of foods that if you're going to really want to start on healthy eating, you can do that. But we're going to walk you through each week steps that we want you to take to heal. There's going to be behavioral changes we're going to ask you to do. There's going to be nutritional changes and fitness changes, exercises. We don't want anybody overwhelmed. This is, you set the pace for what you do. You don't have to, everybody's going to do this differently, and you're going to decide what you're going to do. So this is about building your confidence and seeing the success as you go along. So I think most of you watched the 3 segments that were released earlier in the week. So you got that. I apologize. I think it's a lot of information to watch and then come here and sit through this. But people have told us in the last year during the pandemic, they wanted that content. And so that's still going to be available for you to watch. We have our 2 IT specialists. Do you guys know how long those are going to be available? The 3 videos that were released on Saturday. Chris, do you know how long they'll be on before you take them off?
I think we have up as long as you want to be.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, a week maybe. I don't know. I think a week gives you enough time to go back and listen to something if you need to. But you have the workbook also as a reference. But what I'm going to present, a lot of it has been added to since we developed the workbook. So I think I gave you a pretty good background of myself and the program and how it evolved in that first video we released on Saturday. So I don't want to repeat that. We do have people who are watching this live because they can't be here in person. If you can't be here some night, you can just log in on our Facebook Live page and watch it at home. I think it's nice to have people here because you can interact with each other, but if there's a conflict, you can always do that. And that presentation is also going to be recorded and will be available to watch later as well. So we're trying to make it easy for people. Okay, any questions about any of that before we start? It's just great to have a lot of new faces. We've been doing this since 2006 as a federally funded program for 12 years, mostly down in the Denison area. And every time we've had classes up this way, New Philly, Dover, we've captured a lot of new faces, people that haven't even heard about the program. So it's really great to have new people here. Okay, so let's go into the presentation. My goal here is to hit the highlights of what I talked about on the videos released on Saturday. Just hit the key points and then have time for question and answer. So, okay, so one of the things, as a family practitioner, I think I told you my background was in nutrition. I was working on a PhD in nutrition. I was in research for 8 years. I saw good research and I saw very unethical research that I really questioned the validity of it, wondered how this could end up in science because it was not performed like it should have been. Statistics were massaged. You could see how people could get funded because they got published, and they got published because sometimes they stretched their observations and they pushed graduate students like me to get the results they needed to promote their careers. Now, that's not the case with everybody in science because I work with some professors that did great research, but sometimes you see that. So even now with the pandemic, I don't believe everything I hear about the pandemic just because of my background. Okay, but my belief system through all of these observations over the years is that our current healthcare model is flawed because it's based on managing disease. You got hypertension, you got high cholesterol, we're going to manage it. We're going to give you a pill, we're going to bring your numbers down, and if your blood pressure goes up, we'll give you another pill. And that's how we manage it. And that's what we're taught to do in medical school. But the problem is that's flawed because if you help your body heal itself, many times you can reverse these diseases. We've had people lower their blood pressure, get off their diabetic medication, reverse their fibromyalgia pain, improve their hormonal balance, their menopausal issues. All these things really need a lifestyle change before we go to pharmaceuticals as the approach. So I think this approach, and most people agree with this, we start giving medications to everybody that needs them. And people in nursing homes sometimes come in the hospital with 25, 30 medications. And you're like, how did this even happen? And they're not even awake. You start taking them off medications and they start waking up and talking to you. That's the wrong approach. It's not a pill that fixes the problem. A pill just manages the problem. But our body is designed to heal itself. And that's one of the premises that I firmly believe in. So I know that I want empowered. I had back pain 15 years ago. Went to a orthopedic surgeon. He said, yeah, you got arthritis on this. You got a congenital malformation and where this part of your back joins. And I said, well, I need to know what to do so I can manage this later when I get older, because I don't want shots. I don't want surgery. Well, what you need to do is stop lifting weights, stop running. I'll give you a cream to use, and maybe in 15, 20 years, we'll have newer treatments. But it was not empowering me at all. And I didn't even have a chance to tell him why that I couldn't feel on my thigh, I have no feeling here, and why if I want to get out of a car after a long drive, I walk with a gimp until I can work this out. It wasn't until later that I really understood the anatomy that I figured that all out. So I was not empowered at all. I was a complete victim. And I know that's how you all feel. And my role here is to help you not be victims, help you get good information so you can start fixing these ailments that nobody's even told you has a solution or a cure. But health is more than just the absence of disease. It's a combination of healthy behaviors, healthy thoughts, good emotions, good relationships. So the changes I want you to change have to be internal. You have to start thinking differently, thinking about your relationships, how they affect your health, thinking about your emotional states, as well as the foods you eat. Food is not for pleasure. Food is for fuel. Food is for healing. So all that has to change. So if you've gone through other wellness programs like, Jenny Craig or Weight Watchers or any of these other programs, those are external. They'll tell you what to do. This has to be internal. This has to feel different to you. It has to be uncomfortable. You have to challenge yourself. And so these challenges that I'm going to give you are small challenges, so you're not overwhelmed. But if you don't change all these things internally, nothing is going to stick and it's not going to stay. Okay, so this is the topic we're going to discuss in week 1, the wellness crisis. And basically, this is the shock and awe lecture. I'm going to tell you how sick we are. Nobody's going to feel good about this when we're done. I'm just trying to get your attention and help you realize, crap, I need to do a lot better. I didn't realize I was at risk for all these problems. And most of you already know that something isn't right, or you probably wouldn't be here. So I apologize for that messaging, but I do want to try to enlighten you a little bit on how this has happened to us. So this is a review, right? So I'm going to try to go through this quick. What kills us? Well, heart disease and cancer. 50% of us are going to die of heart disease or cancer. We go down the rows here, count off, and every 1 and 2 person 1, person 2 out of 4 is going to die of a heart attack, heart disease, or cancer. That's pretty staggering. Heart disease and cancer are our primary enemy. And that's one of the things we're going to do in this course is address how to reduce your risk of both of those. And I think you'll find that there's a lot that you can do. Okay, but then if you look at another statistic, this is from the National Vital Statistics Report. This is old data, but it hasn't changed that much. The third leading cause of death is medical care, which that's scary, right? I mean, doctors kill us, medications kill you, and drug interactions kill you. And people come in the emergency room frequently in a cardiopulmonary arrest, and we put that on the death certificate, a heart attack. But if you go back and look, if somebody were to look at this, we could say this is a drug interaction. Their heart stopped because they took this antibiotic with this medication. But when I'm signing the death certificate as a physician, I'm not going to blame my colleague for that. I'm probably not even going to really look at this closely because we don't have time. But that definitely happens. So medical care is a threat to each of us. And when you break this particular slide down, most of these are medication effects. The fact that we take too many medications. And that is a problem that hasn't really changed much. Now, hospital-borne infections and surgeries and medical errors, we've done a lot since 2002 to reduce the risk of these things. These things happen a lot less than they used to. But because we think medication solves all your problems, there's more medications. And there continues to be this threat of medicines and pharmaceuticals causing problems, especially when they don't make us better. They're just managing diseases. Okay, this slide is amazing to me. This is the percent of these chronic diseases that are preventable with a healthy lifestyle. So 91% of diabetics should not have diabetes. A healthy lifestyle would prevent it or reverse it. 82% of people who have heart disease should not have heart disease. There are going to be some people that are going to become diabetic for reasons we don't understand. Some people are going to have heart attacks, but a majority of both of these diseases should not be happening. We got to figure out why that is and how to prevent it. Colon cancer, that's one of the most common cancers that kills people. 71% of the time, according to this data, you shouldn't have it. I think it's more like 95% of the time. If you eat healthy and you get your colonoscopies on time, you should never have to worry about dying from colon cancer. And then stroke. Just think of how, if I told you tomorrow you're going to have a stroke, you won't be able to talk and you won't be able to use your dominant arm, and you're going to live like this the rest of your life. That is an awful thought to think about. And to know that 70% of the time that's preventable. Like, let's do that now. Let's make sure that never is something that we have to worry about. Okay, so the second point I want to make tonight is these epidemic diseases, heart disease, diabetes, cancer. I want to just hit a few points here that just in review. So we think when you got a blockage in your heart, all we have to do is bypass that blockage, right? So we do this bypass surgery. We do 500,000 of these a year in the United States. Oops, why is this not advancing? There's a 2.4% risk that you'll die during the surgery. There's my dad pre-op going to heart surgery, and I know there's a small chance that he'll die. And my brain kept saying, yeah, but there's a 97.6% chance he's going to be okay. But when you know that you're going into surgery, you're just praying that it's going to be a good day for the surgeon and for you in the operating room. There's a 5% risk of having a heart attack or a stroke during surgery. So you wake up and you've had a stroke or a heart attack. Not a high risk, but there's still a risk. And my question is, are these acceptable risks and rates for a condition that we haven't fixed with bypass surgery? You understand that, right? You've got a blockage right here. We put a vein graft in and we go around that. We bypass it. We haven't fixed the root cause of the problem. So when you get that bypass graft, it's likely to plug up. And it's likely that your heart disease is going to continue. This is just an image of how we do these bypass. There's two ways to do this. We can do this open endoscopic approach where we cut the leg open and we tease. There's a group of surgeons on the leg and one on the chest as we're opening up for the bypass surgery. So we tease this vein out and we prep it as our bypass graft. So in this study, we had 1,753 patients. 47% of these patients had an occlusion of this vein graft within 12 to 18 months. My mother had a heart attack. I think she was 78, and then bypass surgery, 3-way bypass, and within 3 weeks, one of the bypass grafts was already plugged. The reason for that is that's a vein, and we're telling it to be an artery. And arteries aren't veins, and they don't always stay open. So then the other approach, see if I can get this right. No, sorry, I didn't get that right. The other approach is a slightly different approach. Actually, I had that reversed. This is the open approach. The endoscopic approach is where you make a couple little nicks in the leg. You don't cut it all the way open, and you just tease the vein out. So again, and there's a 47 or 38% chance that those vein grafts are going to occlude within 18 months. So have we fixed the problem with our bypass surgery? We haven't really fixed it. We've helped them, those people, not have chest pain or shortness of breath that got them to the hospital, but we haven't fixed the cause of their disease because we're not addressing that. And then what we do is we say, well, let's do a stent. Let's find a blockage and let's insert this catheter, and then we blow up this, we put a balloon in there, we blow that up, and that mesh expands and it pushes the cholesterol plaque away, so you restore blood flow. Well, that sounds like a good approach. And actually, we do a lot of those, and that's not near as invasive as sawing through somebody's chest bone. But look at this data: 61 studies, 253 patients. After we've done this, what we concluded is the death rate is not any less after the stent. Why is that? Because we haven't fixed the problem. You put a stent here, and downstream you've still got a problem brewing, and it's developing. And so later, that's going to be a heart attack. So these are not fixing the problem. They're temporary solutions so that, again, you're not symptomatic with your heart disease. We do 1 million of these a year. 40,000 people have a heart attack. 10,000 people die during this procedure. You know how they die? I almost shouldn't tell you this. But if you ever have to have this, make sure you feel really comfortable about the doctor performing it. And most cardiologists are really comfortable. Some have egos, and some want to push this wire through a blockage that's really tight. And they'll push and push and push when they shouldn't push. And then they'll tear the artery, and you bleed right out. I know of one case where that happened, and this was a fairly young person. So this was someone who was trying to be a cowboy, thought he could do this because nobody else wanted to, and this happened. Again, that's not that many people, but you go in thinking this is going to be fine, and you are taking a calculated risk. Okay, so this is an interesting statement from the Journal of American College of Cardiology. Nothing, not the cholesterol medicines, not the blood pressure medicines we use with these people, and assuredly not the metal stents or the drug-eluting stents, nor the bypass graft surgery. None of those treatments constitutes either a cure for coronary artery disease or is risk-free. The cure for coronary artery disease is the right diet. If you've heard of Dr. Esselstyn, he's been down to this area. He's in Cleveland Clinic. He has a diet that reverses heart disease really well in about 85% of his patients. Most people aren't willing to pay the price to eat that diet because it's very, very strict. But heart disease is not a genetic disease. Heart disease is a lifestyle disease. So in majority of the time. Okay, then cancers. I said that 25% of us are going to die of cancer. These are the cancers that kill people. Lung cancer is the most common. Then we have colon and rectal, and you can see this list. I put an asterisk here. Do you remember why I put the asterisk there? What is the asterisk telling us? This is the intestinal tract, right? The intestinal tract is in contact with a lot of bad things. Not that you're doing on purpose, but you're eating foods with pesticides on them, maybe with bacteria and viruses and parasites and all kinds of things in artificial foods. And your intestinal tract gets exposed to that over and over and again, and it keeps trying to heal. And it makes those cells that line the intestinal tract vulnerable to a cancerous condition. So your odds of cancer, 45% of you men are going to develop cancer. You're going to hear you got cancer. 38% of women are going to have cancer. I've already had my cancer. My dad had prostate cancer. I had a basal cell skin cancer right here on my lip. And then this summer, I had a little spot on my chest. Same thing, a basal cell skin cancer because I'm fair complected. I froze it off, thought I fixed it. Went to the dermatologist. She said, you didn't fix it. You didn't get rid of it all. And you should probably let me take care of this. So I said, okay, take care of it. So she scooped it out and it's gone, but I have to watch it. And I'm probably going to have more of those cancers in the future. That's not a deadly cancer. It's a cosmetic cancer. But 45% and 38%. 23% guys that you're going to get cancer and die from it. Well, those aren't too bad of odds, but who wants to take those odds? And then for women, it's a 20% chance of dying from cancer. And we're going to talk about breast cancer and all these prostate cancer and how to protect yourself from those as we go through the course. This is the depressing slide. Did you guys look at this? Do you look at your workbooks and you figure out your BMI?
Terrible.
Yeah, it makes you feel awful. And I tried to explain this. This is not, even though we use this as individuals, this was not developed for an individual to say, gosh, I'm in the obese category or extremely obese. It's meant for scientists to look at, study populations and groups of people. Pregnant women, children, adolescents, senior citizens. That's why this was developed. But we all use this to tell us how lazy we are, how much we overeat. And we tell this story and we beat ourselves up for it. But that's the best we have. So if we follow this through, this isn't about telling you, that you thought you were normal weight and you find out you're overweight. This is to tell you the story about how we've developed with our obesity over the last 25, 30 years.
Well, it's not nice.
It's still not nice. You're right. You are right. So you can see that in Ohio, 1985, 10 to 14% of Ohioans were overweight. Most of the states hadn't collected this data yet, right? So I'm just going to pick up a few slides here. We're going to go forward 10 years. You can see that now all the states are collecting the data. It's not 10 to 14% anymore. It's 15 to 19%. So it's gone up, right, in 10 years. And then I think I'll spare you all of the details. But in 2019, we were 10 to 14% in 1995. And now we're more than 35%. And this is 2 years old. This data is 2 years old. So the question is, are we getting thinner? We're becoming more obese every 5-10 years, right?
Yes.
Who's talking about that? Who's helping us with that? Nobody. The food industry, they're making a profit on this. They're trying to sell foods that cause us to be obese. There are endocrine disruptors that are causing women to have obesity, PMS, struggle with menopause. And there are endocrine disruptors that men are exposed to that drive their testosterone down. You drive their testosterone down, their bellies swell and they gain weight. So all of these things are part of this story. But the point is we are not getting thinner and nobody seems to be addressing it. And so they predicted by 2030 that 42% of us would be obese. Now, if you look at this slide again, 2019, 42% of Americans would be obese. We're getting it close, really close, right? This is we're probably gonna reach this in 5 years. That's not acceptable. So here's the results of obesity, just to make you feel even worse. This is what keeps family, primary care doctors in business, right? We're treating all these diseases. Why don't we stop treating these diseases and treat the cause of these diseases in most cases, which is obesity? Well, because doctors will say, because our patients don't listen to us. Well, you're not the role model either. You're not showing me how to do it. You're not living what you teach. So it's definitely a problem. So the point I'm making is, can we reverse these conditions? Most of the time we can't. Okay, and then there's hormone problems, right? And we're going to talk about hormones in week 11. Hormones is a huge topic. It's something that I love to help people with. But there's all these things that happen when you become overweight. Your cortisol production goes up for a while, then it drops, then you have adrenal fatigue. When you're obese, you have high insulin levels, and that comes from eating too many carbs. Insulin makes you make more fat. If we did a study, if we're doing the opposite in this class, I'd say, okay, every week, sign in, have a couple of donuts, I'll give you a shot of insulin, and by the end of the program, you'd all gain 30 pounds. Right? We're trying to do just the opposite of that.
You'd have more people.
Yeah, probably would. Yeah. Okay. The reason that, and I don't beat people up for this because I know how hard this can be. The reason you're starving and you're thinking, gosh, I had that one donut, now I want 3 more, is because of that hormone leptin and that hormone ghrelin. When you eat sugar, you eat carbs, you eat breads, those hormones skyrocket. And they'll tell you, I'm not even full yet. I could eat 3 more servings, because that's a chemical in your brain saying, feed me. And when ghrelin goes up, you're just your body's saying, I'm starving. The easy way to remember how powerful this is how you feel the day after Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving Day, you just eat way too much, right? 2 or 3 times what you would normally eat. And you think, I feel awful. This is Thursday night. I feel awful. I'm not going to eat tomorrow. How could I even be hungry? Friday morning, you wake up and you're starving and you're thinking, this doesn't make sense. Yes, it makes sense, because all those potatoes and the pie and everything on Thanksgiving just skyrocketed your ghrelin level, and it's telling you, feed me, feed me, feed me. And you're saying, why not? There's some pie on the table, right? So these are powerful hormones that we have to understand how to tell them to be quiet and not to tell us to do things we know we shouldn't do. This is a hormone that goes down in women with obesity. That causes their testosterone levels to raise, and then they'll have the whiskers and the hairs on their neck, and they're like, I don't want to shave, but I don't know what to do with all this. That's one of the problems, but it's because of too much weight. And then, progesterone levels rise. Let me go back to that one. Okay. I'm sorry, progesterone levels go down, and progesterone keeps you pregnant when you get pregnant. It means progestation, pro-pregnancy. But God was really nice to you when he told you you got to get fat for 9 months, because the hormone progesterone is a natural anti-anxiety and a natural antidepressant and a mild painkiller. That's pretty cool. A lot of women say, if I could stay 6 months pregnant my whole life and feel like I felt at my 6th month of pregnancy, I'd do it. And the reason they say that is because progesterone is so powerful at making you feel well. But the problem is, you become obese, you don't make as much progesterone, now you're irritable. And you know that food makes you feel better, so I'm going to have a Coke and a Snickers bar because I know I'm really grouchy today, but that's going to make me feel good for a while. Okay, I'm probably talking too much about this stuff. I just love this. Okay, one other thing, I just want to emphasize this now. We'll talk about it again later. Any of you women who are getting close to menopause or who are in menopause, you are not gaining weight around your belly because you eat too much and you don't exercise enough. I mean, maybe you could do better, but the reason that weight happens is because you're not making estrogen. If you fix that problem, you get enough estrogen, usually by taking it in a safe form, you'll start to lose that belly weight. Now, you can't take estrogen and have Coke and donuts and Snickers bars. You can't eat terrible. But if you're eating pretty good and you're fairly active with walking and you're gaining weight around the middle, it's not a lack of dietary or exercise discipline. It's a hormonal imbalance. You should not feel bad about yourself for that. It's just that nobody's helped you understand that. Once you understand that and you fix that, you'll see that weight come off. So please don't judge yourself too harshly if you're struggling with that. Okay, so there's a bad estrogen that you make when you're obese. It's called estrone. That's linked to breast cancer. Most of the time, breast cancer, one of the triggers, it's not the only trigger, but one of the triggers is too much bad fat. There are thin women who get breast cancer, but having a lot of fat makes you more predisposed to breast cancer. And then when you're obese, guys, testosterone levels drop. And I mentioned this, your belly gets bigger, your risk of diabetes goes up, your cholesterol level goes up, your risk of heart disease goes up. just because your belly's getting bigger. So we want nice, robust testosterone levels. That will make us feel better. Growth hormone production goes down. If I could afford growth hormone, I'd be taking it. I'd be taking it every month. It's like $700 a shot once a month. So I'm not going to take it, and I'm not going to prescribe it because the feds are all over doctors who do that. If you do it the right amount, man, you can maintain your cartilage in your knees, and you can have good energy and really do well. But it's really hard to prescribe just because of all the bad connotations growth hormone has. But the more overweight you are, the less growth hormone production you have. And then nitric oxide, we'll talk a lot about nitric oxide, but nitric oxide, guys, is what helps you maintain an erection. When you start with your erection and you lose it, it's not a testosterone issue, it's a nitric oxide issue. And when the nitric oxide level drops, you can't maintain an erection, your blood pressure goes up. Women, the same thing happens to you. If you think about it, if you think about how your clitoris responded to arousal when you were 20 versus how it responds at 50 or 60, you should remember that the clitoris is not as big and as arousable and as sensitive as it was when you were younger. That doesn't have anything to do with hormones. That has to do with not having enough nitric oxide. That helps your blood pressure. It helps blood flow everywhere. The reason that those two body parts in men, women get enlarged is blood flow. So you restore blood flow and things will feel like they used to feel. Most importantly, this is critical for good blood pressure control. I've been taking this faithfully for the last 3 months. My blood pressure was borderline. Like every now and then I take a blood pressure pill because it was going up. Blood pressures are in the 120s now. It's amazing. You can get this at Mako's. It's called Neo 40. Okay, so we talked about that. If a guy says, hey, can I have some Viagra or Cialis? I'll say, yeah, but I think we might need a stress test, because if you don't have blood flow to maintain an erection to complete what you've started, you have a problem with your blood vessels in your heart. And most men who have heart attacks, bypass surgeries, stents, they'll tell me later, yeah, I was having problems with erections. I just didn't talk to you about it. I was going to ask you. So that is a sign that you got issues with your blood vessels that could be a problem later. But the good news is this is still all reversible. It's still preventable. Exercising hard will raise nitric oxide. Eating right, avoiding certain medications will help you with the nitric oxide. We'll talk a lot about that more as we go through the course. Okay, so the cause of diabetes. The cause of obesity, the primary reason we become overweight, too many carbs, too many sugars in our diet. If you want to lose weight, you need to be about 50 carbs or less a day in your diet. Now, some of you might, you men who are active, you might be able to lose weight on 75 grams a day. Some of you women might have to be down to 35 grams a day. That's as simple as I can put it. You have to cut back on carbs because carbs raise your insulin, and insulin tells your body, we got to make fat. I don't care what they ate, we got to make fat. That's what insulin does. So you have to get that down. And then there's the hormonal imbalance. I mentioned menopause, you're going to gain weight around your belly. It might be 10 pounds, it might be 30 pounds, it might be 50 pounds. But you're going to say, after so many pounds, just forget it. Nothing works. I'm just going to keep eating. I can't get this under control. And then the ghrelin and leptin levels go up because you're eating the wrong foods, and then you've gained 100 pounds since menopause. So we have to always think about the role of hormones. Okay, so we'll talk about this as we go through this. Low thyroid, stress. Did you know sleep deprivation can cause you to gain weight? It messes with your satiety center. If you're sleep deprived, you're going to feel hungry. Loss of muscle mass. We don't want to lose our muscles. People are afraid if they go to the gym and they lift weights, they're going to get all muscular and bulky and disgusting looking. You're not going to do that. You won't do that unless you're training with somebody that's trying to get you ready to perform on stage and win. I'd love to show you 6 different women who 40, 50 pounds overweight, and in 6 months, they're muscular. I don't think they're grotesque. They're healthy and muscular because they've changed their diet and they're training right. I mean, I've seen these women. It's incredible. So it works for men too. You don't want to lose muscle. Of course, we know inactivity. We're going to talk about what it means to slow your metabolism down when we get to cardiovascular fitness. Gut dysfunction, we'll talk about that. Unhealthy bacteria in your gut can cause you to gain weight. I don't know if you know that, but we'll talk about that. And then obese thoughts and emotions and behaviors. Like I said before, you can't look at the mirror and just focus on this obese person with a big belly and a double chin and all the disgusting body parts because you've got this excess weight. Those are obesogenic thoughts. They'll keep you stuck in that mode. Just peel it back. Just take the skin off, the fat off, and you'll see this trim, fit, muscular athlete. That's what you have to start seeing. And in time, everybody else is going to see it, and then you're going to get complimented. But the first couple of weeks, you're going to feel like you're not getting anywhere. Okay, I showed you this. This is powerful because this is the brain reward center, right? I talked about this in the presentation. When we see the red areas, those are where there's high dopamine, and dopamine makes you feel happy. When you don't have red, you don't have dopamine, you don't feel happy. So what do you see with the obese person? There's no red there. What about the cocaine user or the alcoholic? There's nothing that gives them pleasure. Well, food gives them pleasure. Food gives an obese person pleasure. We all want to feel pleasure. So it works for a while, but then the insulin goes up and you're still hungry and you gain more weight. Now you're depressed again. So you go back to food. It's pretty understanding. And when we look at, it's sometimes hard for us to look at a cocaine user or an alcoholic and we'd say, you are so stupid. Why do you do that? You know that's bad for you. If you were living in their emotional state, you know exactly why they do that. It's the only thing that brings them any sense of feeling anything positive. It's the wrong approach. But I think we have to try to have more compassion on them. And we have to have compassion on ourselves. Okay. Oops. This is kind of interesting. I know you saw this, so you should have the answer, right? You should know what I'm going to talk about here. 25,000 genes in the human genome. We've completed the Human Genome Project. That's what we concluded. A worm has 90,000 genes. Are you serious? Stupid worm. What do they have to do? They're not building buildings and making music and raising families. They're just, staying in the ground and being careful they stay away from birds. And then you got a plant. You got a seed. A seed has 150,000 genes. Why does a seed need all those genes? Why is it that humans only have 1/6 of the genes that a seed has? Well, how are we so sophisticated with so few genes? The answer is epigenetics. Epigenetics means the environment triggers how the genes are used. If you live at the equator for long enough, you are going to develop darker and darker skin that's going to reflect light so it doesn't damage you. If you live north, really north, you're going to have lighter skin to absorb what little light there is. Your eye color is going to change. Your fat level is going to change. People who live where there's a lot of mosquitoes and malaria, they develop a gene resistance to that because that's how they survive. So the environment turns on genes and it turns off genes. But the crazy thing about this is there's bacteria in your gut, 2 to 5 pounds worth of bacteria in your gut. That bacteria is good bacteria. It helps you get nutrients. It helps you stay healthy. You want that. If you eat 3 meals at McDonald's today, those genes in your gut are already changing the expression of genes that they make. That's crazy. I'll show you pictures in a couple of weeks that shows you how the lining of your gut and the lining of your arteries can change its appearance within 24 to 48 hours based on the food that you presented. So you might say, I've been dieting for 3 weeks and nothing is happening. But I can tell you, if you're eating clean for 3 weeks, your body is definitely changing. If we could use the microscope, I could show you, and that might be encouraging to you. Okay, so, we say what we are, what we eat, right? But we have to not only eat it, swallow it, we got to be able to digest it, then absorb it from our intestines. Then it's got to go to the liver. So the liver says, this is good, but this isn't good. We got to get rid of it. And then it's got to take the good stuff to our cells. It's got to do all of that before we've really eaten the food. But we're also what we breathe. If you breathe a lot of tobacco smoke, you're gonna have emphysema. We are what we absorb on our skin. Have you ever thought about that? What you put on your skin, most of it's going to absorb. So if you're going to put a moisturizer on your skin, you could just eat it because it's going to get in your body either way, right? I'm not telling you to do that, but that's the point I'm trying to make. But we're also what we eliminate. When we put bad things into our bodies, we got to be able to get rid of it. And we get rid of it by sweating it out, by urination, by breathing it out, and mostly by excreting it through our stools. So you want your stools to be healthy. You want your liver to be healthy because the liver says, I'm going to help you get rid of this bad pesticide you just ate, or this bad plastic that was in the water you drank that we don't want. So you got to have a healthy liver to help you get rid of things. But you're also the sum total of your thoughts, emotions, and the people in your lives, right? So we have to always think about that. Some of you have a ton of stress. Some of you are living with a spouse or a family member who is negative, who is belittling you, who will never support you in your effort to change your behavior. And here you are going to try to change behavior. So how are you going to fix that problem? Because that's a toxic relationship. You got a couple of options. You can say, I've always lived with it. I'll live with it. I know how to do this. Or you can say, I'm going to kick that person out, or I'm going to divorce that person. That's an option. Or you can say, okay, this is a negative energy. I'm going to make sure all the other energies I interact with, the people and the places and the things that I do, are positive and uplifting, because that will help to counter that negative energy. You just have to remember that that's part of this healing process. It's not just food. It's toxicity at every level. What about your thoughts? You know, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm fat, I can't do anything, my back hurts. I can't, don't even ask me to start walking because my ankles and my knees hurt. And then your emotional states. How do you feel emotionally? Stressed, unlovable. I'm always the victim. Nothing ever good happens to me. And you're never going to heal with those emotions. So those are all the things that make us who we are. What you are right now is how all of those energies have impacted you over the course of your life. But it's cool at the end of 12 weeks when we talk to you guys and you say, I'm a new person. I can't believe I started jogging. And I can't believe that I don't have any more joint pain and that I don't need my acid blocker. And I'm starting to walk. I joined the gym and I'm lifting weights. I hired a personal trainer. I'm a new person. And that can literally happen when you address all of these things that impact your health. Okay, so there's all these environmental things. We'll talk about this in week 11. These are just some of the things that we're exposed to. These pesticides and fertilizers, they're awful, and we can't get away with them. We still use them here, but a lot of these they've banned in Europe. Europeans in some ways are a lot healthier than we are. And then there's cosmetics, and there's sunscreens, and there's fragrances that have these parabens in it. And parabens are endocrine disruptors. They cause endocrine imbalances. Okay, so all of those. And then we have to be able to detox from these. And I mentioned this, we do this by keeping our liver healthy and our gut healthy. Where does your body store the bad stuff that it absorbs when the liver says, this is bad, but we can't figure out how to get rid of this? We're going to put it in the bloodstream. Where does it store that bad stuff? Puts it in fat, right? Because fat's kind of inert, doesn't do much. And then you start losing weight, and you're starting to activate the stored energy in the fat. You're moving the fat out of those fat cells, and those toxins start to come out of the fat cells and into your blood. And how do you feel? How do you feel when you really cleaned up your diet after 3 or 4 days? You feel like you got the flu, right? Some people call it keto flu. That's because all those toxins are coming out, making you feel terrible. You just got to stick with that and know that may happen to you. Okay, we'll talk about supplements when we get to in a couple of weeks. We're going to talk a lot about exercise in weeks 8, 9, and 10. Talk about hormones in week 11. So all of those things. This is a slide to show you. This is a little bit old. I couldn't find an updated slide. But there's the obesity map on the top and the diabetes map on the bottom. Okay, the point here is they mirror each other, right? The more obese we become, the more diabetes we become. And diabetes is terrible to manage because most people don't get better. And the medications now are cost prohibitive. I mean, if you're out of control, you may be spending $300 or $400 a month to try to control it. And most people can't do that. So they say, well, I can't take the medicine. I can't afford it. So the problem becomes worse. Pharmaceutical companies are not helping us here. Okay. All right. Visceral fat. This is the belly fat that I think hopefully you heard me talk about this. It's the fat that's not what you grab. It's the fat that if you cut through your skin, pulled back your skin, you'd see the stomach, right? I'm sorry, you'd see the abdominal muscles. If you pull back the abdominal muscles, you won't see the intestines right away. You'll see this apron of fat hanging on your intestines. That's the visceral fat. We don't know how much each of us have based on the size of our belly, but we can assume the bigger our belly, we have fat on the outside, but we can assume we have more fat on the inside. That visceral fat is really dangerous fat. It's very inflammatory and it causes a lot of problems. Here's some of the problems that visceral fat causes. So here's the visceral fat here. It leads to more body fat. You can see when you have more visceral fat, you turn testosterone into estrogen. So men will get man boobs and women will have more of a risk for these cancers, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and uterine cancer. Same thing happens in men, more risk for prostate cancer. When you have visceral fat, you develop insulin resistance and you become diabetic. You develop high bad cholesterol, which can lead to gallstones, gallbladder problems. You can develop heart disease, diabetes, and high blood pressure, all because you got a big belly. So if you want to reverse these diseases, you got to get rid of the belly. How do you get rid of the belly? Cut back on your carb intake. Balance your hormones, start exercising. But I don't want anybody to think you're going to exercise your weight away because you're not going to be able to sustain that. It's too much work. It's too much effort. My son he's lost 40 pounds in 6 months, but he's running 20, 30 miles a week and he's younger, but he won't be able to do that in another 10, 20 years. Okay. So all of that. So there's this assignment in your workbook. After you watch this presentation at home, I want you to stop where you are and answer that question on page 4. When you're watching this at home and you're thinking about it, you should have some thoughts and ideas that come to your mind. They're right on the forefront of your mind. Like, yeah, I'm worried about heart disease because I got it in the family or I've seen it. So those answers that come to you are crucial. That's how we make this program very personalized. Okay, so the problem is we're on this crash course, right? We are not getting healthier. And I told you about this lady who came to the hospital. She fell and hurt her knee, bruised her knee. She couldn't walk. She was already on pain medicine. We didn't know what to do with her. So we put her in the hospital because she had a urinary infection. She could have treated at home. And then we went through her whole history, right? She was in a hospital for 4 days, cost almost $9,000. A $10 prescription would have fixed the problem we put her in the hospital with. And then here's her medical history. How many of those conditions are related to her weight? Probably every one of them. Her weight and the medication she was taking. Oops, what's this not going? And there's surgical history. She's already predictably had breast cancer, right? Here's the key is the social history. She's a non-smoker, divorced, lives with her daughter, needs help with doing everything. She couldn't roll over in bed without somebody helping her move her belly. And of course, she'd be in bed all day. And what's going to make her feel better? Food, right? The bad food. And you can tell she's been through a lot emotionally. She's divorced and she's living with a daughter. She might be ashamed about that. Like I should be taking care of her, not this way. So instead of being disgusted by this woman, I think we should be compassionate. Like everybody's failed her, especially the healthcare system. Because what did we do? That's what we did. She'd come in with a complaint and we'd give her something for her complaints. And nobody would say, hey, let's start on let's start on just a little bit of simple exercise and let's start making some small changes in your diet to help you with this. We just gave up on her. She'll never get healthy with that. And it's expensive. This is our healthcare system. I mean, we all know this is flawed, right? So our crisis response, we turn to doctors. And a definition of a doctor, whether it's an MD or a DO, it's a medical practice that aims to combat disease by use of remedies like drugs or surgery. Hopefully I've convinced you that's not the approach, right? I mean, I don't feel like I wasted time in medical school, but fortunately, I kind of had a different understanding, a different vantage point. So oops, now we're on a roll. Okay, so you saw this, right? This is how much we spend in healthcare from 1960 to 2007. We're spending more money. And then we go to they're predicting 2023. We're just going to spend more money. So we'll be up to almost 20% of the gross domestic product spent on healthcare. So I just showed you diabetes is going up, obesity is going up, heart disease and cancer are probably going to go up. People are going to feel miserable. And that money has not helped us at all. And you understand why now, right? Because we're not addressing the root cause of any of this. That's why I have the Fit for Life program. When this came to me, I'm like, this is crazy. We have to help people. I had to help myself. I've helped myself a lot by applying these principles. I'd be completely different if I wasn't doing these things. So this is the return on investment. This is a slide that says we spend more than any other country, but we rank first in responsiveness because we have good EMS, first in expenditures, but our performance in health is 37 out of 150 countries, and we're 72 in our overall health. So our money has not helped us become healthier. Our approach has not worked. What are we doing? We're doing the same thing. You're getting the same medicines, and you don't really have any hope. 191 countries. I tried to update this. So now we're up to $11,000 per year per person on healthcare it's sick care. That's going to break our economy. Just think in 10 years how much we're going to be spending. And we're going to be taking care of people like this lady she's dependent on government assistance. And she's teaching this to her children and grandchildren. Okay, and then there's a price of pharmaceuticals. I'm not going to go through this because hopefully you already heard it. But the point here is we spend a lot of money on drugs, on medications that often are pulled from the market because we find out they're not healthy later. I'm so glad we have antibiotics. I'm so glad we have pain medicine when we need it. But those are the only two that I can really say I'm really grateful for, because everything else, I feel like healthy lifestyle most of the time, we wouldn't need near the amount of pharmaceuticals that we have. Okay, and you know that, right? The most commonly, or the symptoms of the most commonly prescribed condition, right? Everybody watched it, it's depression. Don't you feel depressed now? You should. Now you know why you're depressed. Before you didn't know why you were depressed.
It's Halloween.
All right. So unfortunately, it's antidepressants, and that's what we do. You got a problem, I got a solution. Here's a medication. And these are just kind of staggering. We prescribe 2.1 drugs every time you come into the office. Okay. And then we have these programs. Everybody says it's going to help you, but they're not internal, they're external. And they don't work. Anybody done Insanity before, that program? You know how many people got hurt doing that program? I mean, you got to be like 25 years old and not really overweight to not get hurt. That is an insane program. Okay, and then science. Science is, I don't know, I'm assuming you all saw this, the scientific method. There's gray areas in science though, right? Everybody thinks science is so straightforward. It is not straightforward. I've been right there. I know what happens when you have to have 10 animals in each group to finish your experiment to show your professor, and one of your animals dies of heat stroke before you can treat it. That was me. What do I do? It's a dead animal. Nobody's here. Do I use a dead animal, or do I confess that I killed the animal and then I get somebody yelling at me and screaming at me and mad that she doesn't have the data she needs? I mean, it was an awful, awful time in my life. There's these gray areas too. So, do you need milk to have strong bones? Well, 30 studies say yes. 24 studies say it doesn't matter. 3 studies say you actually lose bone density. So, where's the clarity there? What are you going to believe? You know what you're going to believe? You're going to believe what your mother told you. She said, drink your milk, right? That's confirmational bias. And if your mom says, eat your carrots because you have good vision, you're not going to get an ophthalmologist to convince you otherwise, probably. You're going to listen to your mom because that's what you've always done. Okay, and then there's these catastrophes, clinical catastrophes. So we all have this confirmational bias. We already know. We already know we have to have this vaccine. We already know we have to have milk. Nobody's going to convince me otherwise. I don't care what you tell me, what you show me. It's what I know is true. So that's one of the problems, because we're automatically biased. And then you got to say, well, who's funding the study and what do they stand to gain? I'll tell you this as we go through, but a lot of drugs on the market were funded by the drug companies who are going to gain from us taking the drugs. And same with the vaccines. Does this fit the message of nature? I mean, you got to go back. What's nature teaching us? What's nature teaching you about what you should eat if you look at your teeth? Your teeth look like a cat. Your teeth look like a cow. Because if they look like a cat, you need to be eating a lot of meat. If it looks like a cow, you need to be eating a lot of vegetables. And if you're not sure, go home and look, and you'll say, I look more like a cow. That's what nature's teaching us, right? It's not complicated. And then another point is association is not the same as causation. There's an associated risk with high cholesterol and heart disease, but high cholesterol does not cause heart disease. Maybe not what you have thought or heard, but association does not mean it causes something. And 1 or 2 studies that say they prove something, that doesn't prove anything. You need a lot of studies that all come back to the same idea to support it before we can say, let's say this is what we know. Here's something, and then there's statistical significance and clinical significance. Here's something that the pharmaceutical reps would always show me. They come in, they'd say, look at this drug here. This is our drug. This is our competitions, or this is placebo. See how much better our drug is? There's statistical significance here, and you need to use our drug. Like, wow, that's impressive. But you notice how they did the chart? Mm-hmm. This is what they should have showed you, because that's what the chart looks like. And okay, so statistical significance means the difference that you see between these two was not a random error. Something accounted for it. That's all you can say. So it's statistically significant. I'll give that to my patients, but what if they they start bleeding from their stomach, or they develop a cancer because of that? Well, that's the wrong messaging, right? So you have to be careful with those kind of things. So, as you're trying to think about healing and becoming healthier, some of this stuff might not make sense to you right at first. And you're taking the information you've already had. You're thinking, well, I used to walk. I'm going to try to do that. And want to start eating more salads. And I'll go to my chiropractor and see if they can help me with my back. And you're trying these approaches that you've already used before. And it's like, but why aren't they working? It's kind of looking at this picture like, I know something is wrong because it's not working. Well, I want to help you make sense out of it. So when we go through this, all of it's going to make sense. And you're going to say, I see how this fits together. Okay, so I'm going to skip these slides here. Okay, so this week, this is like the first day of school, no assignments, just have fun. Enjoy your bad food for another week, and we'll get serious. Those of you who don't, and the student in the journal, there's a list of foods, very restrictive if you're ready to start that. I do want you to do something 3 days a week, walking or some exercise. I don't care how long it is, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. It needs to be a little bit more than what you're doing. But I don't want you to get all enthused and say, I'm going to walk 30 minutes and then you got bursitis or you got plantar fasciitis or you're hurting. That's not what I want for you. So you decide a place to start. 3 days a week is the key. And then you have an assignment to read the second half of this chapter and answer the questions. And there are some reading assignments. I want you to look at the journal as well. It shouldn't take you long at all. And then next week, we're going to talk about mindfulness. And this is really helping us start to question our thought patterns, how they're sometimes flawed, and we got to just completely turn around the way we're thinking. Okay, so that was supposed to have been done like 20 minutes ago. I apologize. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Not about this particularly, but about the vaccine for the COVID. How many tests was that done and how could that affect individuals for taking the vaccine? Do you know or have a feeling on it?
Well, the vaccine, as you know, it's probably really controversial. Some people are strong both ways. It's like, it goes like this. Yeah, I probably will get it. Oh, I'm going to get it. You are so stupid if you don't get it. You're going to kill people. And these people are going to say, are you crazy? I'll be worse if I get the vaccine. And then we're all somewhere along that continuum. And it's okay to have a feeling one way or the other, but all I want to say is it shouldn't be divisive. We can't look at people and have more contention. We're all doing the best we can, trying to make sense out of a very complicated situation, a very scary situation. So I don't really want to tell you my personal preferences. You might be able to figure out as we go, but I'm not judgmental on either side of this because I know people are really struggling with it both ways. You have to do what you feel is best for you. Any other questions? Yes.
So I'm going to incorporate this with my whole family. And one of my sons is 14 and he is overweight. So how would I do his carbs? If he'll be healthy, he's like almost 6 foot.
Yeah, he's probably still growing, right?
He is.
So I'd probably see if you can do 100 grams a day for him. Start with that, and if he rebels, then.
Can you repeat her question for those at home?
Sorry. So her question was her son who's 14 and needs to lose weight. How many carbs should he eat? And yes, I would start with 100 grams a day and see if that's something he could do.
Thank you.
Okay, Kelly, do you have something you want to? Yes.
When you restrict carbs, are you talking more the simple carbs or the complex
Both.
carbs?
Both, yeah. So
Okay.
potatoes and starchy carbs, all of those. You can get an app to follow that, track that. That's probably the easiest way to do it. There's the MyFitnessPal app and the Lose It app. We'll talk about that too in a couple of weeks. But that's the easiest way to do it. You'll find that it adds up really quick. You know, you might say, I'm going to have a whole bunch of grapes, but there's sugar in grapes. You can have grapes, but just know what that's contributing. Okay. Go ahead, Kelly.
I don't know if I need to be up here in front of this, but we do have several folks that have not had their blood work done yet and their measurements, and we are going to have that session this coming Saturday, the 25th, between 6 and 10. You can come anytime between 6 and 10. It'll take you about 20 minutes to get through everything. So if you have not had that done yet, please do come and get that done. I think everybody's got their books and everything, but that's an important part of the program. The blood work is pretty phenomenal, and you get a lot of really good testing out of that. So please have that done. Also, you have received a critique sheet. And what that is a sheet that's going to help us improve the program. So please take the time to fill that out. Don't put your name on it. We don't need to know who says what, but that does help us improve the program. So please fill that out and hand that to me on your way out.
Where do we come for the blood work?
You will come to Trinity Hospital, Twin City in Denison, come into the main lobby, and then we'll be on the first floor. We have a gal down there that will direct you.
Okay. I think Kelly?
Yes.
I just got a question about fasting
Oh, yes, it is fasting blood work. We are gonna do a complete cholesterol panel, so we'd like you to fast at least 10 to 12 hours, water only.
All right, thank you. We'll see you next week. And use the live Facebook or the Facebook page to ask questions. We can answer questions there. Check it. I'm going to give you some motivational videos to watch, so I'm not taking time here, but just check that once or twice, every day if you can. You won't miss anything that way.